Welcome back. This is the I-24 News Evening Edition. I'm Lucy Arish, and this is One on One. Our guest tonight is Dr. Doron Avital, a very special guest, a former member of the Israeli Knesset and former commander of Elite IDF Unit, Sayeret Matkal. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's a
like I
pleasure to be
said, you are a former commander of the elite unit, the Sayeret Matkal, and I have to say that participating and being a commander on such an elite unit in the IDF, it's kind of different and doing different operations than, let's say, IDF spokesman unit.
I would say so.
Describe it for me.
Well, I mean, this is in fact the most distinguished elite unit of Israel, and in many respects, many of business people, politicians, and many of the elite leaders of Israel went through this unit. So it's a very special place. It's a place in which you learn more than anything how to plan long-term, large-scale project over a long period of time. It requires many talents, and you come out, you enter, you don't come out the way you enter.
What do you mean by that? How did you come out of it?
Much more serious, much more understanding better. What does it mean to plan ahead? What does it mean to think strategically? What does it mean to execute something successfully? And also a better understanding, I think, of the context where we live, because we really do many sensitive operations that connect with the neighboring...
Sensitive figures also.
Yeah, there are many stories that some of them are true, some of them are not true, that connects to the unit. But you learn the space where you live, the Middle East, and you learn how to do project in a very meticulous, smart, but intelligent way. And more than anything, it's really people think that, a special unit, they think of the soldiers and commanders like in a Rambo type terms, but not. Basically, it requires a lot of intelligence. I mean, I wouldn't say that the soldiers are Nobel Prize winners, because we have those Israeli winners of today.
Yeah.
But it's a question of good planning and good understanding of the space where you live.
So you said this is how you left. You left more serious. How did you get in? Let me get you back to your first...
much more adventurous. I think we were, as every kid growing up in Israel, going first to the paratroopers and then to the unit. You think of the army also in adventurous terms. You want to go and visit foreign countries at the dark nights without nobody noticing you. You hear the stories of the past. You want to be part of those stories. You want to be part of this legacy. So in many respects, it looks... it's exciting, it draws you in, but when you come out, you also understand the weight of the things. You understand it's not only an adventure book, this is part of history, part of your history, part of the history of Israel, and it connects to major events in the history of Israel. So you feel, I think, after such a long period of time, you feel like you're a chapter in the history of your country.
Any regrets?
I don't think so. In the end, I think I had some tough dilemmas, because, through those series of successes and victories, there were also failures. The beginning of my commanding post was an event that turned out immediately to be a real political dynamite, the Tzelim affair. So you really learn also what politics is, how the army connects to politics, how sensitive our region is, how sensitive this country and society is. So of course you would have, when you look backward, you would have preferred to bypass those setbacks.
Remind us a little bit, if you can, about the Tzelim affair that occurred here.
This was really an event that took the country by surprise. It was in the end a terrible accident. But since it's really an accident that involved the leadership of the army, it really very fast became a political issue. And I think if I look backward and I say to myself, where I've succeeded the most is to take a unit after such a crisis, after such a deep bottom, and to rebuild it in a new fashion, taking into account what went wrong, understanding what went wrong, and building a new unit in many respects, and a unit that serves us and its commander served Israel for 10, 12, 20 years since then, in the spirit of this major correction that we had to introduce into the logic of how we do things.
What went wrong exactly in the Tzelim affair?
I would think when you want to execute, and when you want to execute things with with a great determination, and there's this great desire to succeed. Sometimes you overlook the most trivial and basic things, and then terrible things can go wrong. So in the end, you have to bring back, and I'm telling you this not only to my unit, but also to the IDF, and maybe also to our country in general. You have sometimes to go to some basic classical understanding of things, and not to let the desire to execute, the desire to succeed, the desire to win, to overshadow those basic classical values or consideration that you've been growing up on from an early age.
How do you take, let's say, in a way, a broken unit and try to bring it back together?
Interesting. It's a very good question. I was hosted at 2 days ago. There was a dinner with the president, Perez. The dinner was in honor of the Czech president, the new Czech Zeman. And I was there when I was in the Knesset. I was heading our friendship association, the Parliamentary Friendship Association, with the Czech. And then Perez went to his favorite analogy about you don't jump between two cliffs. You have to do it in one giant leap. So I would say when things like this happen, there's the desire to stop everything and to go back, and maybe to call back some old veterans to take the lead. But we did the opposite. We decided that we have to, once we understood what had happened, we had decided we have to take our young generation of leaders and throw them into the battle. And if I can just jump into politics, I would tell you that I would think that this is really the point in which our country right now is in terms of taking. I don't see enough young leaders in the first on stage, in the first line of our leadership, and I think we are in this moment when this change might take place. Those are the last few years.
Before we'll move on to politics, how tough is it to be in such an elite unit that you have so many pressures? You know that you have a big responsibility on your back, the soldiers and the commander. And how tough it is, psychologically, physically?
I think more than anything, in the end, of course physically, but in the end, and it's part of the picture, but in the end it's, I would say, psychologically or mentally, basically, because you really have, in the end, you have in those crucial moments, in those moments of truth, to make the right decision. So to go for those moments in truth and to make the right judgment. It's a question of judgment. In those moments of truth, no calculation, no pre-planning. They can serve you, they can help you, but in the end, it's you, the moment of truth, the decision, and you have to do it. And if you do it right, a sigh of relief. If you don't do it right, you take it all through your life, and it's something you can't fix. There's no way to play it back.
Let me give you, let's say, a scene. In the middle of a big operation, one of your soldiers is telling you, I cannot do it. I don't want to get in. I cannot do it. I'm out. How do you calm him? How do you, because it is his life. And
first of all, you have to get to reach a point or two by planning to a point in which those things, I hope those things don't happen, but there's no question that things like this can happen and
because in certain
happen.
Operations, they know that they might get into the operation, but they won't sometimes get out of it alive.
No, they know. I mean, you go to war, you go to an operation, you know the risk, of course. But you have to come to a point in which you know enough, you're confident enough, you have confidence in the people around you, you have confidence in your commanders. This is key. The key is commanders. A good commander, the soldiers would follow. A bad commander, the soldiers will not follow. And going back even to scenes of war, I was a paratrooper commander, company commander in the Lebanon war, and I would tell you frankly that there were times in which in other platoon or companies people didn't charge when needed, and in the end the fault is of the commander. So I would think when you have a good commander that people are willing to follow, then you wouldn't find such incidents. But of course, if such a thing happens, you have to solve it on the spot. I can't give you a recipe, but you have to solve it.
You think that the IDF changed in the last few years than in your period of time?
I think the second Lebanon war, was a moment in which many people realized that something went wrong, that some fixing should take place. Reliance too much on technology. Going back to what I've said in the beginning, forgetting the most basic classical values of warfare or in general. It can be values of friendship and can be values of the position of the commander which is too far from the battlefield. Watching a screen wouldn't be a commander that people would follow. A clear vision of what you want to do. Daring. Willing to take sacrifices. And I would say more than anything, the idea of victory. Sometimes I think we forgot that in the end, battlefield is about victory. So you have to be very determined to know what you want to do, fight and win victory. And Lebanon war was a real crucial point, I think, in the history of the IDF. And I think some correction took place. I hope things are better now. But no question, there was this moment of crisis in the IDF in general. I hope in the unit has succeeded to bypass it, because its moment of crisis was many years earlier, and I think we really understood what had happened and we put it on the right track.
So let's take you to politics. You are, like we said, a former Kadima, Israeli Knesset in Kadima Party. In the last election, Kadima was a strong political voice. It was in the opposition, didn't do a lot in the opposition, and it crashed in the last elections. What went wrong? What went wrong in Kadima?
This is a big story, but I would think, first of all, this clash between the two leaders, Tzipi Livni and Shaul Mofaz, after the resignation of Ehud Olmert, really did terrible damage to the party, really in the end divided it to two parties. And really what it made, because the idea of the Kadima, the idea of a center, liberal democratic party is not only a good idea, I think it's an idea that would serve Israeli politics as we go forward. In many respects, Yesh Atid of Yair Lapid took many of the main ideas of Kadima and colored them differently. But to be serious, there's also another issue which is very important. It's very important to understand it about Kadima. It connects also with the passing away of Adia Yosef 2 days ago. We have to understand that in the end, the geometry of Israeli society has to do with the two groups of Jews that came to the Holy Land, people that came from the East or from the North African countries and people that came from Europe. The promise of Kadima was the promise of integration. And in the end, it was the point where...
divided.
And then it got divided along those lines. It's really in terms of the electorate.
Yes.
And this is really tricky. And I would say that this idea right now, when I look at the political landscape, I see in those terms a very, first of all, right-wing government and party, but also in the way people describe it, in the way that people talk in the street, a white parliament and government. And this can't work. It can't work because half of the people of this nation feel that they were left out. And when you see those 800,000 people mourning over the Yosef, you understand it. Something that half of this nation is not right now taking part or taking its right share in politics. And I think Kadima, or a frame like Kadima, a political party like Kadima, with the right leaders, we are still in Kadima. We have to see it. We succeeded to save Kadima and to take it through the crisis. It wasn't an easy task. Because every one of us...
We can even say that Tzipi Livni, even in a certain way, gained the position of foreign minister. Because, and there is a lot of criticism about Tzipi Livni because you didn't do, a lot of people are saying you didn't do anything when you were in the opposition. And the moment that you had a chance to try to find a break and to get into the government, you found it, you got in.
Yeah, you got it. But the question in the end is, what I found a little bit strange, the way we look at Israeli politics, is the way we accept the fact that Bibi Netanyahu is the only option for a prime minister for Israel. This is unacceptable, I mean, on the face of it, without even considering who Bibi Netanyahu is. So I would think that the new elections, and they might be sooner than the 3 years, because we have there are many trajectories now, the different trials of Lieberman and Olmert, the negotiation with the Palestinians, the Arab Spring conflict around us. So I'm not sure this government would conclude its due term.
4 years.
So I would think the new elections would be a new type of elections, and we have to think again. How do we don't How do we think of a different kind of prime minister and different kind of direction of this country? Because this country needs a new direction. For me, this is why I joined Kadima to begin with. This is why, in the end, I think Kadima, with its 2 seats, is in the opposition. What would be the exact structure of this new center party? And who would be the leaders? And how would it go? Who would be with whom? It's yet to be seen. Another distinction that we have to look very carefully at is the divide right now between the Orthodox parties, and I'm counting Shas and Yadut Torah, and the religious Zionist parties. And this divide is a crucial divide for Israeli politics, because if the Orthodox would go moderate on foreign affairs and relationship with the Palestinians, then we might find a center-left party in the future pulling this country forward.
Dr. Doron Avital, thank you for a very insightful conversation. Thank you for coming to our studio, and thank you, our viewers, for staying with us tonight. Tomorrow we will be here at the same time, same place from the Jaffa Port. Have a great night.